everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today on the podcast, I chat with Ray Hartjen, author of Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. Ray wrote this book to document his journey from his diagnosis with cancer in 2019. Our word of the week this week.
It's the word of the week.
Is community. You know, Ray said he wrote this book not just to remember his journey and talk about what all he's been through, but also he wanted it to be a book from someone in the cancer community to someone in the cancer community. I mean, we can always relate to people much better who are going through the same things that we are going through. And I know this book is encouraging people all over the world. Ray has a great attitude, and he was so much fun to talk to. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation, and if you know someone that would benefit from his book, I encourage you to get it and help them out, because I promise, even though it's about a hard subject, I laughed a lot through this book. You can tell he's very optimistic, and he, as much as possible, was very lighthearted as he wrote. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a great day.
Hello,
Ray?
Shara.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you
Good.
doing?
I'm doing well. You're in California, so it's probably not super cold there right now, I'm guessing.
It's not super bad at all. I think we're expecting it to be about 70 today.
Oh, wow. Well, it was in the 20s when we woke up, and I started a fire in the fireplace, and I am sweating. So I might have gone a little overboard. And I've had to open windows. Well, I honestly loved the book. You know, you don't know when you're reading something like that, when it really doesn't have any effect on me, as far as this is your life, this is your story. You think, okay, this is a story about a man that has cancer. He's going to talk about his story with cancer. I loved this book. I loved it. I thought you were very honest with everything, but it seems like you have such a good attitude, and probably you were like that before your diagnosis. You just, even though when you talked about hard things, you were kind of lighthearted in a lot of it. And I think that made it more fun to read. Like your attitude just seems to come across that
comments. Way. I appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. It's different than any other writing that I've done, in that it's personal.
Right.
And you don't want to be personal and everybody go, I hate that. It's like, do you hate me as a person?
No.
It's there's a lot of anxiety and coming out about it, but there's opportunities, I think, to be a leader in the space as it relates to patients and caregivers. And advocates, allies, and when there's opportunities to be a leader, I want to be a leader. Just like when there's opportunity, when I need a leader, I hope there's somebody there that I can lean on, and they can pull me forward, right? So, I'm glad that you like the book.
So, who did you write this book for?
Part of the book, when I first started writing it, was for me. A bit of a catharsis. But I didn't know much. I had lived in a bubble my life. I got diagnosed with multiple myeloma when I was, I think 11 days shy of my 55th birthday. And, I had, I didn't even know what multiple myeloma was, when I was first diagnosed with it. And I learned so much through my initial diagnosis about how to be a patient, really. I can remember, we kind of were being led to a diagnosis by my hematologist oncologist, who was, going through more and more sophisticated tests. And we didn't know what it was going to be, the final diagnosis. But she kind of warned us ahead of time that, we were looking at probably lymphoma or multiple myeloma, something that ends in an A that, isn't particularly great to have. And, the naivety that I had, I told my wife on the way, to see what the results of my bone marrow biopsy was going to be. And, I said, all right, whatever it is, we'll give it 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and then we get on with it. Right. That's just something that I had adopted in business for years, in athletics, in music, just give it 10 seconds, react and let it go. And that was a bit naive. It took a little bit more than 10 seconds to kind of get over it, right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself thinking about cancer upon my initial diagnosis. Pretty much the first thing I thought about every day, and it's pretty much the last thing I thought about at night too, and many times during the day. And but I started wanting to approach it with like, how else do, I approach obstacles in my life? What have I taught my kids over the years about, approaching obstacles and challenges? And, what's the best way to get through this? And I began to think, you know, think about our growth mindsets that we have, that all of us particularly have as children, right? Back then, might call it like a beginner's attitude, and you
Right.
approach things with this like open space. And then there comes a point in time, maybe our mid-teens, our late teens, when we don't need to learn anything else because we know it all, right?
Yeah.
We start approaching things not with a beginner's attitude, but with like, I already know this type of stuff.
Right.
And at the end of the day, there's so many unhappy people in the world who just aren't growing and things like that. They have this
Yeah.
conflict, digging inside of them. That face all these, challenges. There's a lack of inner peace and the like. And I started, thinking about, my cancer journey and approaching the learning mindset. And I thought, this is new for me. Could it be new for others? Right. And,
Yeah.
I wanted to, I benefited so much from having cancer patient support groups, for example, people who have blazed the trail before me,
Right.
while I'm feeling strong and I'm feeling well, is there an opportunity for me to help, lend a helping hand for others that come behind me? I want to be that person. So, I just kind of
Good.
started writing that, the book for myself in a way to kind of collect my thoughts. And I thought, could this possibly be a resource, for others? And I wanted it to be a book, by someone in the community, for the community, to benefit the community.
Yeah.
It's my fundraiser for the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation.
Awesome.
Proceeds from the book are dedicated to the MMRF, because we're all in this together. And it's not just us patients that are in it together.
Yeah.
Collectively, as people, we're in all of this together, right? And, I certainly want to, shed some light to the patient caregiver who has an extraordinarily difficult job, right?
Right.
And they're very important for patients, and then all those allies out there as well too, who
Yeah.
just have a vested interest in outcomes. So that long-winded question, Shara, is that I started writing the book kind of for myself, and then recognized I thought there was an opportunity for others, and I sure hope it serves as a resource.
I really believe it will, because I guess what I was trying to say in the beginning was it's not depressing, because you think you're going to read about somebody's story and it's hard and it's, all these things. It was like enjoyable to read. It wasn't what I expected. And it's not because I think I don't know you. Something that I thought you were a depressive person, but it's, a hard story to hear, but it was fun to read. Like, you just have a great attitude, and all the treatments and all the things that you had to go to, not that any of it was easy, but your attitude probably changed a lot in your journey, I would think. And that is why I think it's going to be encouraging to people who are maybe just stepping into this, or somebody has a loved one that's just stepping into it. This was a great book to read if you're
And
going into that journey.
yeah, I appreciate that. I do like to think of myself as a positive person, and a person that wants to be positive, and look toward the positive, and strive to achieve the positive, right?
Right.
I feel better that way, and
Yeah.
maybe that's me, and maybe it's not for somebody else, but I did, there's I think a part in the book where I talk about roles that I had as an individual prior to my diagnosis. And there's tendency to look at cancer as a loss. It's like, oh, great,
Mm-hmm.
cancer. How does it change my life? What have I lost in my life? And like
Right.
for me, I go to a infusion center once a week. I can't hop on a sailboat and sail around the world. But at the end of the day, I had never done that before, and I don't sail, so I don't know if there's a huge loss. But I am tethered to an infusion center
Right.
once a week. But before I was diagnosed, Shara, I was a father, and a husband, a brother, an uncle, a bandmate, a boss, an employee. I had all these roles, and within those roles, there were accountabilities and things that I wanted to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
goals and objectives associated with it. And you know what? The day after I was diagnosed, I was still a husband and a father, and I had all those
Right.
roles. Not a single role went away. But very shortly, other roles came around. One was a cancer patient advocate,
Yeah.
a caregiver advocate, a fundraiser. Now those are new roles that I've adopted. They have new accountabilities associated with them. There's new
Yeah.
goals and objectives associated with those. And if you look at it that way, cancer's added to my life, right?
Yeah.
It's added some things. It's taken some things away. It's changed my life. but it's added some things. And isn't that positive? And one of the things I want to talk about, to your audience is, you know, the kind of gift, I hate to say that, the gift of cancer diagnosis has given me as relates to my personal life. I have read, where, previously cancer patients looked at their diagnosis day as the best day of their life, in
Wow.
hindsight. And I'm not there. I would have adjusted. I'd be well and good, I think, without that diagnosis.
Right.
But when I used to facilitate a time management course back in earlier parts of my career, and there's an exercise there called the timeline exercise, and it's a simple. You listeners out there, you viewers out there, if you have a pencil and piece of paper, that's great. If you don't, just follow along in your mind. You don't just draw a horizontal line from left to right. And then at the far left-hand side where you started, a little vertical tick mark, and the far right-hand side, a vertical tick mark. That left-hand side vertical tick mark, you can put a B there. That's your birth. And then, of course, logically thinking, you're probably ahead of me. On the right-hand side, put a D next to the vertical tick mark, and that's your death. So then you take a moment and think, where do tomorrow's not promised. We know that, right? But, where do you think, where do you believe you are on the timeline of your life? Throw a little tick mark in there. Cheryl, when I facilitated that, I kind of like, haphazardly, I always used to throw my tick mark like right in the middle. I'm halfway. I'm going to live forever, and when I revisited that a couple of months after my cancer diagnosis, I thought, hey, you're a lot further to your right than you thought you were. Multiple myeloma is an incurable cancer. It's treatable, it's incurable. You're further to the right than you probably thought you are. So what does that mean, right? I thought right away of, I have, I think, common to like a lot of humans, taken time for granted over the years. And
Mhm.
I would always take tomorrows for granted, and next weeks and next month, sometimes next year. And depending on the topic, it would be some next decades, and I
Yeah.
was guilty of this. Someday I'm going to dot, dot, dot. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. It's like, well, there's things I want to do, but then I thought about it like one step further. It's not just time and the things I want to get accomplished. It's the people I want to engage with, the people
Yeah.
that are most important to me. Because the way that taking time for granted manifested itself is that I took people and relationships for granted as well. Right. I'm thinking of my good friend, Shara. I'll text her. I'll give her a call next week. She's going to be there. I'm going to be there and all that. And it's like, no, don't take the time for
Yeah.
granted. Don't take the relationships for granted. Think about somebody, give them a call right now. Reach out to them via email, text, or whatever. Being able to articulate that in my mind, taking time for granted, and therefore taking people and relationships for granted. Being able to articulate that in my mind, empowered me
Yeah.
to correct that behavior as much as possible. I still have ways to go, and I still have things to learn. But it all started back with just kind of looking about how cancer has changed me, and what's the impact of a diagnosis, and be willing to approach things with a bit of a growth mindset,
Yeah.
and a bit of introspective thought.
Well, that is encouraging to me. I mean, I'm not on your journey, but it's encouraging to me because we all need to have that attitude. We all need to remember we don't have tomorrow for granted, whether we have a diagnosis or not. We can't take that for granted. So it encouraged me in reading. I laughed often just with your sense of humor. And there's a lot of things that I learned that, talking to people, I've talked to people all over the world who are helping other people in different ways. And I've learned so many things from people that I hadn't thought about before. Like when you talked about sharing your medical diagnosis with people, how it's complicated. It's not like you just tell them and they know and now life moves on. How did you find that was complicated having to share that with others?
Yeah, they don't give you manuals for things like that.
Right.
And it's sort of like, we talked previously about being a parent, right? You
Yeah.
be a parent, but they don't give you a manual how to do it. And you learn. And I wanted to share my diagnosis. Some people don't want to share their diagnosis. I talk about that in the book too, and that's the right answer for them. But
Right.
I read some stories and heard some things about other people's experiences. Like I think this is important to share, and I wanted to share it with my family first. But we were distributed. My wife and I were in California, but our daughter was going to law school in Nashville, and
Mhm.
our son was in college also, in the Bay Area, close to where we live, but further away. But I needed to tell them, and I also know that things travel through back channels pretty quickly. So
Right.
let's start on the Eastern time zone. Let's go to Olivia in Nashville and talk to her there. And that was the most difficult conversation I had in my life. My daughter, in her, young mid 20s. I don't know if she even knows that you can use your mobile phone to talk with. It's a texting machine, right?
You have one of those?
It's an Instagram machine or what have you. And so
Yeah.
as soon as I called, she was like, "Uh-oh, something's the matter." And it's
Yeah.
like she was almost in tears as we said hello. And that's, and then I have to break this through. It was an extraordinarily difficult conversation to have. That got better as I moved west, with a little
Yeah.
bit of experience. I just wish I had practiced it maybe a little bit in front of the mirror or whatever for that first phone call. That was a difficult thing to share. But it gets, better with time, and, people just have, questions, or they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And, comfort's like, hey, I thought you should know. And, particularly when I'm talking about the friends, I think my family has to know, right? But now I said,
Right.
begin to talk to friends and, just, let them know that, the diagnosis and what I'll be doing. And, I just, thought you should know. And it gets a little bit better, over time. I think that the interesting aspect of that conversation that was really born to me out of a support group is how others that maybe you haven't told receive the news,
Right.
and people that kind of like don't know how to handle this. Like, I don't know what's going
Mhm.
on with Ray, so I better not ask. And it's just being afraid to ask, which I would have been something I think that I would have it would have been to me. I would have
Sure.
done that exact same thing. But now being a patient, I think I know better. The
Yeah.
patient, wants to hear from you. My advice to anybody out there is, if you don't know what to say to somebody, just fess up and start there. Confess. Shar,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say, but I love you and I care for you. And I'm hoping we can just get through like 30 seconds of discomfort here,
Right.
and get through my problem because I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this. I want to learn more. I want to see what I can do. It pains me when I'm in a support group and somebody says, "Well, with a cancer diagnosis, you find out who your friends are really fast." And I'm like, "Oh, that true. That might be true." There's a
Right.
patient in one of my support groups whose husband left her because he just didn't really
Blows
want
my
to handle
mind.
the cancer diagnosis. Yeah, blows my mind too.
Yeah.
This is not like a marriage that had been around for a couple of years. This is a marriage with kids. It's been
Right.
30 plus years, and yes, sometimes you do find out who your friends are, but probably a lot less than you think, because they're friends of yours for a reason, right?
Right.
There's a mutual, love and caring of one another, but they got stuff going on in their lives that you don't know about, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is facing a battle that you know nothing about. So, give them a little bit of a break because quite often they just don't know what to say. And one
Yeah.
day turns into 2 days, 2 days turns into a week turns into a month. And, there's maybe you fall back to the default and you find out who your friends are. It's like, well,
Yeah.
no, not necessarily. Give them a break. They might not know what to say. And if you're out there, people, and you don't know what to say, start there, have that
Right.
conversation. You're friends for a reason. You love each other for a reason.
Right.
Engage.
Well, that was gonna be one of my questions is what do you say? But that's just be where you are. I don't know what to say, but I want to
Yeah.
help.
And fess
One of the
up.
things
They'll
you
understand. It's that tough
yeah,
topic to talk about. And, it's an important topic to talk about. Well, if anybody is facing a serious health issue, it's a daunting proposition.
sure.
My wife and I are inundated alone with just correspondence from care
Yeah.
providers, insurance companies, payers, and, prescription companies. And there are medical appointments and there's tests and there's results getting back. There's the ebb and flow of emotions and how you feel and all that. There is just a lot.
Yeah.
So we need help, and if you
Yeah.
particularly know somebody going through a serious health issue alone, reach out to them, ask them, how you can help. And for you patients out there, let people help you. We have a lot
Yes.
of control freaks in our networks, right?
Yes.
If they're not in control, they don't feel well. How can they feel
Yeah.
well? Well, they can't control your health journey, but they can control cooking you a meal. They can control
Yeah.
taking you to an appointment or something like that. Sometimes a patient might not need help, but the care provider needs to provide support. So
Yeah.
So like any other relationship, it's a give and take. Us patients can learn, caregivers, advocates, they can learn as well.
Sure. Absolutely. One of the quotes that you had that I loved, you said, I've come to realize that cancer doesn't bring with it the fear of dying, rather, it brings the fear of not living while alive. I think watching you live through this book, you're living. You weren't talking about dying. You weren't talking about, like you said, the loss and all the things. Even though you're honest about your journey, you were living and you talked about it. And that's what I think is so encouraging about your story. I just think it will uplift so many people that are going through this, that are just stepping into it, or, like I said, like a loved one is having to go through it. I think it's going to be very encouraging to them for that very reason.
Yeah,
Um,
live, people.
yes.
It's the best thing you can do is
Yeah.
live your life, particularly for those who maybe aren't able to live their lives. I'm a
Right.
musician. I'm always looking to make a little extra money at a gig. So that means selling off a band t-shirt, right? And
Yeah.
what better way to put yourself a band t-shirt and either have a cool logo or some sort of saying on the back, right? And
Yeah.
when I looked through my timeline exercise, Cheryl, one of the things that came to me was this saying, if not now, when? If not
Yeah.
now, when? I don't know when that end of that timeline is going to be about. So, if I got something to say, let's say it now. If I got a song I need to write, let's write it now. If I have a book I need to write, I need to write it now. If I have a
Yeah.
relationship I need to foster, I need to foster that now, right? And that led to another quote, or that I like to use in the back of shirts, and I use a lot, and that's punch today in the face.
Yes, I love it.
I want to get today's attention, right?
Yes.
And if anyone's ever been punched in the face out there listening to this, that gets your attention right away. Like, oh,
Yeah.
so, punch today in the face is, just the motto that energizes me. I want to use today up. Today is a gift, and not everybody received today as a gift,
Right.
right? So, how do I honor those people? How do I honor the day? And how do I honor myself? Right? Let's make the most of this day. Let's live,
Yeah.
right? And so when I'm in bed tonight, I'll read a little bit and get nice and tired, and then I'll put my Kindle over to the side, and I want to be able to kind of look at today and say, I used you up today. And
Right.
then I kind of want to give a little point over to tomorrow and say, I'm coming for you next.
Yeah.
So beware, but message it to live, honor
Yeah.
yourself and honor the opportunity that you have, the gift that you have of today, and live. Do
Sure.
the things that are most important to you with the people that are most important to you. And you know what? All that minutia in your life is going to fall off to the side anyway.
Right.
You'll still be able to get it done, but just focus your priority. Don't spend the first 3 hours of the day dealing with all the minutia in your life. Spend the first 3 hours of the day with what's most important with you, and the people most important to you. Believe it or not, you still have time to cruise through Instagram later on in the day. You'll still have time to get your email or what have you.
Right. I love that. You mentioned earlier, and you talked a lot about this in the book, but how important do you think it is for people to be in a support group when they're going through something like this?
I think it's unique to the individual. For me, I'd never been in any type of group before.
Yeah.
And but my doctor said, hey, we have this one support group. It's right upstairs. You might want to think about it. And I was like, I'm going. And it's I find it for me, I found it to be very helpful. I learned so much about cancer from fellow patients, more so than my personal experiences, right.
Yeah.
So understanding them, and there's also a give and take to groups. There's times for other patients to help me as a patient,
Hmm.
but there's also times for me to with others, or just me, to be able to help the other members. So it's this
Yeah.
symbiotic relationship amongst the individuals within a group. And it's the group changed my life, and it changed my outlook on my diagnosis, for me personally, because I was so grateful for these people could share little insights, like chemotherapy.
Right.
Chemotherapy can be rough. Chemotherapy also tends to have a cumulative effect. It gets rougher the longer it goes
Yeah.
on, right? It's like, hey, thank you for that little gem of wisdom, right? And so trailblazers, people who have been down the path before me, helping me. I wanted to be like them. They were like role models to me. If people behind me, how can I help them along? And it's
Right.
the honor of my life connecting with patients through the book. I've shipped books to around the world. unbelievably 3 copies to New Zealand. That
Wow.
kind of shook me up. South Africa, about 2 months ago, a handful of women patients from Iran reached out to me.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's so cool that,
Yeah.
forget about, geopolitical differences, just the differences in geography alone,
Right.
just, getting down to human interactions. And it's the honor of my life to connect with patients, through social media platforms, and hear their stories,
Yeah.
offer encouragement, answer their questions, at the same time, they're answering my questions and hearing my
Right.
stories and offering encouragement to me. And it's super cool that we have this, technology infrastructure that allows us to make the world a much smaller place. If we just used it
Yeah.
more often for good
Yes.
rather than for
Yes.
evil, it
Absolutely.
would be fantastic. But yeah, for me, a support group was valuable, and it still is valuable. It's not, I can see how it's not for everybody. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
difficult. A support group member of ours recently passed away, and those aren't
Yeah.
ever good. But there's and sometimes we have some tough conversations. Sometimes you leave feeling worse than when you came, but then there's
Yeah.
other times that you leave feeling so much better than you came, and you feel
Yeah.
satisfied, and you're able to help somebody, or somebody was able to help you. So a very, I think, individual type of decision. But I'd encourage everyone to at least give it a try. What's the worst that can
Sure.
happen, right?
Right.
Give a
Right.
support group a try. And it's not just for a cancer patient. It's anything that you think you might need support on. You think you want to
Yeah.
be a better parent, maybe go to a parenting group, if you want to,
Yeah.
if you're having, anything that face a bit of a challenge, go and listen and see what you can pull from.
Right. That's good. What is something that has surprised you about this journey? Maybe something that you just had no idea, probably a lot of things, but something that stands out that surprised you after you started this journey with the tests and the treatments and all the things.
I think that's a good question, and thank you for asking it. I think and I'm a bit stumped, but I would say I think the biggest surprise would be my ability to grow and reframe.
Yeah.
I still live a blessed life, Shara, and I certainly lived a blessed life ahead of time. I've got
Yeah.
no complaints, and even when I go into chemotherapy, I'm there for a couple of hours. There's some people there all day. There's some
Yeah.
people there all day, and then they bring home chemotherapy and go through the
Wow.
whole next day as well, right? So
Yeah.
I still have it good, but I think that teaching an old dog new tricks type of thing, I think surprises me. My ability to reframe and learn from this and just change my entire approach. When I was first diagnosed with multiple myeloma, I approached it like I approached everything else with bull in the china shop type of approach. I'm whipping this thing, man. I need to get in great physical condition. I need to lead up to a stem cell transplant. And I approached it like I approached projects at work. Either races or games, athletically, gigs, musically. I was just all in. And after a couple of weeks, I was just absolutely exhausted. I
Yeah.
was I was exhausted, and I learned from there that my whole being is this confluence of my physical being, my mental being, emotional being, and spiritual being, right? And all those things can lift others, and all of them can also
Yeah.
drag down others. And so just being aware of that, it's like I'm absolutely exhausted. But I was physically exhausted, but not because of the physical work I was doing. It's because the mental and emotional drain
Yeah.
and spiritual drain that had dragged me down over a couple of weeks. And it's like I need to adjust the way that I do things. I think that realization, that articulation in my head, got me just thinking about other things and approaching with a beginner's
Right.
mindset. And I don't approach my care with a beginner's mindset. I'm approaching my headspace with
Yeah.
a beginner's mindset and my growth. I trust my medical team. I don't know. I'm far from a leading expert on the prescriptive remedies or treatments for multiple myeloma. I trust my medical team, and I'll look into what I need to do. But I very much compartmentalize my stuff. I don't get too far ahead on thinking about maybe a CAR T therapy, down the road or what have you. I'm focused on what I need to, kind of do today as a patient.
Right.
But I think the surprising thing for me is being able to grow and learn and reframe. The biggest obstacle that I've had to face personally, and see what I can do from that to learn from it and make myself better. I still have cancer, still have multiple myeloma, but I have richer relationships with the people that mean the most
Right.
to me. And I'm being able to focus on what I want to do. That's most important to me, as opposed to what's maybe most important for others.
Right.
I've learned.
And you've passed the 5-year mark. That's kind of what they said from a diagnosis. You're past that, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm coming up on my 6th year
Yeah.
anniversary. I'm assuming it's an anniversary. I don't know a better word for it, but
Right.
6th year anniversary of my diagnosis, March 11th, 2025 will be my 6th year. I'm over 5 years out from my stem cell transplant, which
Yeah.
is a second birthday for me. For those of
Yes.
you who aren't familiar with stem cell transplants, and I hope it's most of you, it's a complete reboot of your immune system. So it's really like
Yeah.
being born again. Zero learned antibodies. I had to go through
Right.
the entire childhood vaccination program again.
Yeah, I
Uh,
read that.
yeah, so 5 years beyond, it's sometimes difficult. You see you see the numbers, the survival rates, and 5 years is that average mark, and it's like, well, I want it to be higher than that. But you just keep on clicking on one day at a time, right? So
Yeah,
that's all you can do, and take the day as a gift and make the most of it. We got today.
sure.
Don't worry about
That's
tomorrow.
right.
Tomorrow.
That's right. That is right. We should all have that attitude. What is something that you could encourage someone maybe that just got a diagnosis? I mean, I know it's a long road and they're all different, but what is something that you could tell somebody, encourage them as they're
Yeah,
stepping
know
up?
that I think all of us as humans, we are stronger than we know. We've
Yeah.
never really been pushed. And when we get pushed, we can push back strong. So know out there that you can do this. You are
Mm.
stronger than you know. And also know that we're stronger together. So reach out and build that village around you. If you're a patient out there, if you're a caregiver, if you're an ally, an advocate, I'm happy to march right alongside with you and do things. Give me a call. My phone number's in the book. Uh, Reach out to me in social media. You are stronger than you know, people, and together we are stronger. Chin up, face it. You
Yeah.
can do this, and I'm going to help you. And there's a whole bunch of others out there that's going to help you as well. You're not in this alone.
Yes.
It takes all of us for everything that we do, and know that we're
Right.
here for you.
It was beautiful to see your village that helped so much with different things, helping y'all find a place to stay during your, different treatments and all the people. I love that. I think that's beautiful. That's how we should all be, doing, helping and jumping in and doing what we can. I thought that was great.
It takes a team, and
It does.
we are stronger together.
Yes, it's true.
We all face something. Look for ways that you can help others. It makes it's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
And also, there comes a time sometimes you're going to need to lean on others to help you and accept that help, because you're going
Right.
to make them feel better, and you're going to feel better also by getting their help. So
Yeah.
it takes a village. It's funny. I always used to think of my team as a tribe. My
Yeah.
publisher, well, actually my editor for the book is like, let's kind of get away from the word tribe. Maybe it's a bit loaded, or people have preconceived notions about it or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, team, tribe, they're still the same. They're the most important people in my life, right?
Right.
Family, friends, and network. Yeah, everyone out there has a team, and work on
Sure.
building your team and engaging your team, giving
That's
and
awesome. Well, I loved the book. I laughed not a lot, but I laughed often because just your sense of humor shone through. And I loved, like I said, I loved your attitude. You just had a great attitude. And I really do believe that's going to be encouraging to many people that have read it. Is there anything that I have not asked you about that you want to tell me about?
You know, uh, we could talk forever. I love talking.
Me
No,
too.
I think, when I sit down and talk to people about this book, I have a few books that I sit down and talk about. But when I talk about this one, and being a cancer patient, being a cancer patient advocate and advocate for caregivers, I think the points that I want to talk about are the ones that we've made, and
Yeah.
certainly the ones lately. But kind of a quick little recap. If you know somebody that needs any type of assistance, reach out to them, whatever it might be. But that outreach will be welcomed, and it will make them feel so much better. And if you don't know how to get started, just start there. Yeah, I don't know how to get started, but you are important to me, and since you are important to me, Shara, whatever you're going through is important to me as well. It might be a difficult conversation, but let's kind of get through the conversation so we can get to the better part. And that is, making things as best as we can. Right. So I think that's important. And, if you're a patient out there, I think it's important for you also to know, you can do this. You can do what you set your mind to. You're stronger than you know, and you have people that are willing to help you. Count me amongst them. And then for everybody out there, today's a gift. That's what are you going to do with it? I challenge you. What are you going to do today where you can sit down at the end of the day with a sense of satisfaction and inner peace that you made the most of the gift that you were given today? I want to hear it. I want to see you do it.
Sure. I think that's awesome. I am excited to share this with people and share your book, because I really do. I'm encouraged to encourage others with it. I think it's great. And I am excited for you. Are you going to be, well, like you said, you couldn't travel far. Have you traveled at all, like even locally, to do any kind of signings or anything? Or
yeah, I can travel. I've been to Italy. Since my diagnosis, I just can't stay for long.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's we have gotten out and do things. There haven't been a lot of opportunities to do book signings lately. We've recently moved from the Bay Area down to Southern California to be closer to our daughter. And just making connections with bookstores. Most of the connections that I do with people are through social media platforms, and I invite all you listeners out there and viewers. You can connect with me at Ray Hartjen everywhere. So that's my handle. It's also my email address, rayhartjen@gmail.com. Would be thrilled to connect with you. Thrilled to understand your stories. Like I said, it's the biggest honor of my life, particularly connecting with patients and their caregivers around the world. It's I love, being a resource, where available. And every conversation I have, I learn so much. And that's
awesome. Yeah. I see you're still singing. I see our guitars. So you're still playing.
Yeah, I don't know so much singing. I'm a little
playing.
very self-conscious about my voice, but I do have a small EP written. I just put out, or I just recorded some acoustic demos for it. Soon I'll be putting some more songs up on Spotify and other streaming platforms, just to get feedback. Right. So I'm going to reach out to you. So what do you think? Does it have potential to be produced? Should I, professionally produce it and put it out? But I think that's the best way to do it. There's been some, role models of mine. There's a blues singer in the Bay Area. His name is the Fantastic Negretto. And, he's won a Grammy, but before he released some of these blues songs, he played in front of the BART station, the train station in the Bay Area. And his idea was, if I can resonate enough with a commuter to get them to stop their tracks and turn and look at me and listen to see what I got going on here, then maybe I'm onto something. And, I'm kind of away from a train station. So I figured the next best way to do that is I'm just going to load these demos up on,
there you go.
Online.
It's great.
And, maybe I can, we'll see if I can get people to stop on their online journeys to and get their feedback to see if, there's any potential in these songs. Yeah.
That's one of the great things about social media is you can do stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be looking. I'm going to reach out to all you listeners out there and say, hey, just give it a listen. Let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down, something like that. Yeah. I can take it. I'm a writer and a musician. I get a lot of constructive feedback. Be honest. And I just want to thank you so much for having me on your show. I love hearing the stories that you share, and I hope your audience are gonna love hearing the story that I shared today. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I do.
Thank you for being a guest. I am just excited to share it. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will be in touch.
You too. Stay warm on this cold bit that you're getting.
Yes, through. I'm gonna have to slow down on the fire because I'm hot.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Enjoy the day.
You too. Bye-bye.